One of the most controversial fan theories in King of the Hill history claims that Bill Dauterive, not Hank Hill, is Bobby's biological father. This theory has divided the fandom for years, with compelling evidence on both sides. Today, we're examining every piece of evidence, from Bill's obsessive behavior to Hank's medical issues, and determining whether this theory holds up under scrutiny. Bill Dauterive's behavior toward Peggy and Bobby goes far beyond normal friendship. In Escape from Party Island, when Hank leaves town, Bill becomes disturbingly possessive. He shows up uninvited at their home, revealing he still has a key Peggy gave him 6 years earlier. This demonstrates Bill has maintained access to the Hill household for years. At Bobby's baseball game in the same episode, Bill crosses clear boundaries by yelling at the coach, "I am responsible for that boy. You play him now." The phrasing, "I am responsible for that boy," suggests a parental claim rather than neighborly concern. Bill has to immediately walk this statement back when confronted, but the damage is done. In Bobby on Track, Bill makes another revealing comment to Peggy, "You think Bobby's bad? Imagine if we had a child." Peggy's reaction is unusual. She shifts awkwardly and doesn't verbally shut Bill down the way she typically does. In other episodes, Peggy immediately rejects Bill's advances, telling him directly, "No, you will not." Her silent, uncomfortable reaction here stands out as potentially significant. The most direct evidence comes when Bill states outright, "In a moment of weakness on a dark, rainy night, I slept with Peggy." Hank immediately responds, "No, you didn't, Bill." And Bill backs down, saying, "I know." While played for comedy, the specificity of the claim, a dark, rainy night, a moment of weakness, could be interpreted as Bill testing the waters before losing his nerve. Physical and behavioral similarities strengthen the theory. Both Bill and Bobby share round head shapes and heavy-set builds. More significantly, they share cultural connections. When visiting Bill's family in New Orleans, Bill instantly adapts to Cajun culture and speaks Cajun French fluently without prior knowledge. Bobby demonstrates this exact same phenomenon in a later episode, immediately taking to Cajun culture in a way that mirrors Bill's experience. The episode, Blood and Sauce, focuses on Bill's family barbecue recipe. Bill laments being the last of the Dauterive line with no children to pass his traditions to. At the episode's conclusion, Bill chooses to pass the secret recipe to Bobby. This symbolic adoption into the Dauterive culinary lineage could be more literal than metaphorical. The theory's strongest evidence comes from pregnant pause, which reveals Hank has a narrow urethra and extremely low sperm count. The doctor explicitly states it would be nearly impossible for Hank and Peggy to conceive naturally. Hank refuses in vitro fertilization despite Peggy's desperation, leaving her without options. The theory proposes that Peggy, frustrated by Hank's refusal to pursue treatment, turned to Bill as a solution. Bill was still married to Lenore at the time, though her affairs were already an open secret. Peggy could have rationalized this as necessary to have the child she desperately wanted. Bill's ongoing obsession would stem from this single intimate encounter and his knowledge that Bobby is his son. Bill demonstrates surprising knowledge about Hank and Peggy's fertility struggles, despite Hank's extreme privacy about personal matters. The theory suggests Bill's knowledge comes from direct involvement rather than secondhand information. When viewed together out of context, this evidence appears compelling enough to convince many fans. The episode, Blood and Sauce, presents the theory's most significant contradiction. The entire episode revolves around Bill mourning that he's the last of the Dauterive line with no children. Bill's emotional arc centers on his grief over dying childless and his family legacy ending with him. He explicitly laments having no son to pass his barbecue recipe to, treating this as profound personal tragedy. If Bill knew Bobby was his biological son, this entire emotional journey makes no sense. Bill spends the episode in genuine despair over his lack of descendants. He doesn't express hope that Bobby might someday learn the truth, doesn't show signs of secretly knowing he has a son, and demonstrates real grief over his childlessness. The episode concludes with Bill passing the recipe to Bobby, but this is framed as a surrogate father-son relationship, not biological acknowledgement. The theory requires Bill to either not know Bobby is his son, contradicting evidence of his obsessive behavior, or to convincingly pretend otherwise even in private moments of grief. Neither option aligns with Bill's character throughout the series. Bill is not good at hiding feelings or maintaining long-term deceptions. His emotions are always visible, his loneliness always apparent. This episode shows Bill at his most vulnerable and honest about his lack of children. If Bobby were secretly his son, this would be the moment for internal conflict, subtle hints, or meaningful glances. Instead, Bill's grief appears completely genuine. The barbecue recipe itself carries enormous weight in Dauterive family tradition. Bill treats this recipe as sacred family heritage, passed down through generations. The scene where he teaches Bobby the recipe is treated as a significant moment of connection and trust, not as biological obligation. Bill's dialogue throughout emphasizes that he's choosing Bobby, that this is an act of will rather than duty. He tells Bobby that the recipe dies with him unless someone worthy receives it, and Bobby proves himself worthy through dedication and respect for the tradition. This framing only works if Bill genuinely believes he has no biological children. If Bobby were his son, Bill wouldn't need to choose him. The recipe would naturally pass to him by blood right. The emotional weight of Bill's decision to share this family secret with Bobby comes from Bill breaking tradition to save it, not from Bill finally acknowledging his secret son. The entire episode's dramatic structure depends on Bill having no children and making peace with that reality by creating chosen family instead of biological family. Bill of Sales provides another major contradiction regarding Bill's feelings toward Peggy. Peggy manipulates Bill into her pyramid scheme by showering him with compliments. She tells him, "You're a kind, hardworking, superhuman people person who's taking us to nationals. Oh, Bill Dauterive, I love you." Bill's reaction is immediate disgust and rejection. "What? What are you doing? Stop it! Leave me alone! Keep the jacket! Keep the pen! I quit." He literally runs away from Peggy's kindness, visibly repulsed by her warm treatment. This episode explicitly explains Bill's attraction to Peggy. He's drawn to her tough, belittling attitude. Bill responds when Peggy negs him, when she's critical and dismissive. When Peggy treats Bill with genuine warmth and tells him she loves him, Bill cannot handle it and physically removes himself from the situation. This behavioral pattern directly contradicts the theory's premise that Bill's obsession stems from a past intimate encounter. If Bill and Peggy had shared a night together, if Bill carried the memory of Peggy showing him genuine affection and intimacy, his rejection of her kindness makes no psychological sense. This would be exactly what Bill has desperately sought all along. The episode demonstrates that Bill's attraction to Peggy is specifically tied to her rejection of him, not to hidden history. Bill's psychology is consistent throughout the series. He's attracted to unavailable women who treat him poorly, likely stemming from his toxic relationship with Lenore. Peggy's usual dismissiveness fits this pattern. Genuine affection from Peggy breaks the pattern and repulses him. Physical resemblance becomes less convincing when examining Hill family genetics. Flashback episodes showing young Hank reveal Bobby looks remarkably similar to his father at the same age. Young Hank shares Bobby's round face, similar body type, and general appearance. Multiple episodes make visual jokes about this resemblance, showing photos of young Hank that could easily be mistaken for Bobby. Cotton Hill and his other son, Good Hank, also share these facial features. The round head shape supposedly connecting Bobby to Bill actually runs throughout the Hill family line. Cotton's facial structure, despite being elongated by age, shares the same rounded quality. Good Hank looks like a combination of Cotton and Hank, establishing these features as genetic Hill family traits. The current similarity between Bobby and Bill primarily comes from both being overweight with round faces. This is body type, not genetic fingerprint. Bill was fit and athletic in his youth, as shown in military flashbacks. His current appearance results from lifestyle and age rather than inherent genetic structure. Bobby's weight fluctuates throughout the series and is treated as changeable rather than predetermined. Some theory versions suggest Cotton is actually Bill's father, making Bill and Hank half-brothers. This expansion creates more problems than it solves. Bill's established family history includes Cajun heritage through the Dauterive line in Louisiana. Multiple episodes detail his family background, visits to relatives, and exploration of Cajun ancestry. This connection to the Dauterive family is treated as biological fact. Cotton has extensively documented family history, including military service, relationship with Hank's mother, and Texas background. There's no narrative space for Cotton to be Bill's father without completely rewriting both characters' backstories. Given Cotton's inability to keep secrets and tendency to use every piece of information for leverage, the idea he would keep this secret contradicts his character entirely. From a narrative perspective, why would writers want this hidden truth? King of the Hill already explores biological father versus social father dynamics extensively through Dale, Nancy, John Redcorn, and Joseph. This is one of the show's central ongoing plots, providing comedy through Dale's obliviousness and emotional depth, through John Redcorn's inability to have a real relationship with his son. Recycling this exact dynamic with the Hills would be redundant storytelling. The show gains nothing from two separate families dealing with hidden paternity. The Dale and Nancy situation works because it serves multiple purposes. It satirizes Dale's paranoia by making him blind to obvious truth, creates emotional stakes through John Redcorn's loss, and provides commentary on what makes someone a real father beyond biology. Applying the same twist to The Hills would undermine these themes. The Dale and Nancy storyline's power comes partly from its contrast with The Hills' stable, honest family unit. Hank and Peggy's marriage is fundamentally solid despite problems, creating a baseline of stability against which the show's chaos plays out. The thematic core of King of the Hill centers on Hank and Bobby's relationship, a traditional father struggling to understand and accept his non-traditional son. The show's emotional journey follows Hank learning that Bobby doesn't need to be right by Hank's standards to be worthy of love and respect. Hank's growth involves accepting that masculinity, success, and family can look different from what he imagined. If Bobby weren't actually Hank's biological son, this entire thematic structure collapses. The revelation would provide Hank an excuse for why Bobby is different. That boy ain't right because that boy ain't mine. Instead of Hank needing to grow and expand his understanding of fatherhood, the biological twist would validate Hank's initial rejection of Bobby's differences. The father-son relationship gains emotional power specifically because Bobby is Hank's biological child who happens to be nothing like him. Their differences force growth rather than indicating a mistake. The show repeatedly emphasizes that biological connection doesn't guarantee similarity. You have to work for that regardless of genetics. Introducing hidden paternity would contradict this message and cheapen 13 seasons of character development. Many evidence pieces become less convincing when examined in full episode context. Bill's statement, "I am responsible for that boy," occurs during an episode where Bill is having a mental breakdown due to loneliness and inappropriately inserting himself into the Hills' lives. The line is presented as Bill overstepping boundaries due to desperation, not as a slip revealing hidden truth. Bill's comment, "Imagine if we had a child," comes in an episode about Bobby's athletic struggles. The context is Peggy complaining about Bobby's performance and Bill attempting to make her feel better by suggesting any hypothetical child of theirs would be even worse at sports. It's self-deprecating humor about his own physical limitations, not coded reference to Bobby's paternity. The scene where Bill claims to have slept with Peggy is immediately contradicted within the same episode. The script treats this as Bill fantasizing out loud and being reminded of reality, consistent with other episodes where Bill's loneliness causes him to invent or exaggerate connections with people. The fertility revelation in Pregnant Pause doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Bobby already exists when this information is revealed. The episode takes place years after Bobby's birth. The show never suggests Hank's condition is newly developed. The doctor's statement that conception would be nearly impossible leaves room for Bobby to be the extraordinary exception. Bobby being the one-in-a-million success story of Hank's limited fertility is consistent with the show's tone about ordinary people experiencing unlikely but not impossible events. Additionally, in vitro fertilization existed at Bobby's birth. The show never addresses whether Hank and Peggy used medical intervention to conceive Bobby. Hank's resistance to fertility treatments in Pregnant Pause relates to attempts to give Bobby a sibling, not Bobby's original conception. The theory requires multiple characters to maintain perfect long-term deception while showing no psychological weight. Peggy would need to have betrayed Hank, deliberately conceived a child with his best friend, and maintained this lie for over a decade without guilt affecting her behavior. Bill would need to see his biological son daily, watch Hank raise him, and never slip or seek relationship beyond neighbor and friend. This level of sustained deception contradicts everything the show demonstrates about these characters. Peggy is not good at hiding guilt. Her conscience manifests obviously throughout the series. Bill cannot keep secrets or control emotions for extended periods. The show's entire dramatic and comedic structure depends on characters being fundamentally incapable of the kind of perfect long-term deception the theory requires. The Bill is Bobby's father theory functions as entertaining thought experiment that creates discussion and allows fans to re-examine the show through new lens. As fan theory designed to provoke conversation, it works perfectly. As actual interpretation of the show's intended narrative, the theory fails under critical examination. The evidence relies on confirmation bias, taking dialogue and situations out of context, and ignoring substantial contradictions. The counter-evidence outweighs the supporting evidence when examined fairly. More importantly, the theory doesn't improve the show or deepen its themes. It undermines them. King of the Hill works better with Bobby as Hank's biological son because that relationship forces genuine character growth and explores meaningful questions about parenthood, acceptance, and love beyond biological determinism. Bill's tragedy lies in his loneliness and inability to move forward from his failed marriage, not in secret knowledge of a son he can never claim. The show's heart remains in the genuine struggle of flawed people trying to love each other well, with biology being only one aspect of what makes a family real.